Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. No LeBron, no AD, no problem. The Lakers shock the Celtics and everyone else, winning in Boston on Thursday. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcast, it's always free. It's never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 22,000 subscribers are wondering how the hell the Lakers won on Thursday night, but are enjoying it, are soaking it in, Andy, because that victory, no LeBron James, no Anthony Davis. Our friends at FanDuel, the Celtics were a double-digit favorite before we learned that AD and LeBron were going to play. That number bumped up over 15 by tip. And yet 114-105 in the most, I would say, joyous and unexpected win of the season for your Los Angeles Lakers.
Not just, Brian, no LeBron, no AD, no second half of Jarred Vanderbilt, who injured his right foot, which matters because the heel injury that caused him to miss the first 20 games, that was the left heel. And Darvin said they don't know yet the extent of whatever damage, how long he will be out, if he's going to be out at all. Darvin said he's hoping that it's not serious, but they don't know. But you're talking no LeBron, no AD, and no Jarred Vanderbilt, who, especially without AD, your best defensive player by a long shot, and a guy who has been playing very well, including the first half of this game. Jarred Vanderbilt was fantastic. The Lakers, there's a lot of different things that happened in this game. It's sort of in the spirit of Jarred Vanderbilt and what he did in the first half and what they were missing in the second half. Just emblematic of how they won this thing. They played as hard in this game for 48 minutes as I've maybe seen any team play for 48 minutes in all the time I've spent watching basketball. Like, there are playoff games I've seen where you don't see a team play for 48 minutes that hard. Like, I was thinking about it afterwards, Brian. There was not a single possession where, regardless of whether it went well or not, where it felt like, all right, somebody wasn't paying attention there. Someone was just sort of wasn't getting back in transition. Someone was phoning in something or just taking a breath, taking a possession off. Didn't feel like it happened once. That is rare.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, first and foremost, it's the only way they can win that game. Like some goofy things were going to happen for the Lakers. You're going to have to catch a little bit of luck. You know, Boston clearly didn't take the Lakers terribly seriously, and they didn't, kind of didn't get off to a good shooting start. Their starting backcourt, really wasn't very effective early. It allowed the Lakers to get out and get a lead and get confident. I think at one point they were up by 16, 17 points. I forget what the biggest lead was, but and that we've seen this play multiple times this year, except the Lakers are playing the role of the Celtics, in this situation. So, the one thing the Lakers, they had to do was play really, really hard. And especially in regular season games, even big marquee rivalry national television games, effort really can move the needle. And the Lakers brought it for 48 minutes in a way that was just fun. Like, you could start to see them believe oh, you know what? We're not just going to give this game away. Boston made some pushes, got it in under 10, but they never gave up the lead. They just kept pushing it back out to, Boston would get to 7. The Lakers would push it back to 11. It was really fun to watch this team get stops and buckets when they needed them.
Well, it's also fun just to see, especially on the heels of how listless and low energy and in a lot of ways just checked out, discouraged, frustrated, flat, however you want to put it. They looked in those back-to-backs against Houston and Atlanta beyond the fatigue factor, which we've acknowledged was a thing, particularly against Houston. LeBron, for example, looked absolutely gassed in the Rockets game. He didn't have it against Atlanta, but you could tell it was more of a fatigue thing versus a checked out thing. But then we heard his post-game comments after Atlanta and, the emoji and all that stuff. And this team has seen so bad vibes for a couple weeks now. It was jarring to actually see them come out with that level of just energy and almost just bleep you double middle fingers. No, not tonight. We are going to just come at you regardless of how things shake out. We're coming at you.
There's a lot of that in there where it was just if we go out and we play hard and we lose by 15, literally nobody, I mean, that was the line. Nobody is going to be surprised by that end result. But, we'll talk a little bit about what can you take away from this game? And, there are a few things that I think are helpful here. The biggest one is instead of being 24-26, they're 25-25. And, when you're scraping for wins and, trying to figure out how you can maybe get back in the top six, or at the very least, make sure you host a play-in or whatever it is, you look back at the end of the season and games that might get you where you want to go. And this is going to be one of them, stealing a game in Boston. But I will say this, we spoke at length for Thursday's show, wondering, we did it Wednesday too, about what happens with Darvin. What kind of connection does he have with the team? What kind of energy can they produce? And I don't think this was a go out and win one for Ham kind of thing. I mean, these are, as you will hear people say, I mean, these are all professionals. They're very prideful. You want to kind of do the impossible thing. Somebody like Jaxson Hayes, who we'll get into in depth for a shocking statistical thing that, don't say it now, but Jaxson Hayes.
I'll just say this. It's more shocking to me than the actual result of this game. It is the most shocking statistical event of anything that has happened in the entire NBA over the time Jaxson Hayes has been in the NBA.
You know what? Let's just say it. It's the most shocking statistic of all time. It is.
It's up there.
Except for maybe Corey Brewer scoring 50 points. That was kind of crazy too.
Yeah.
But this wasn't a win-one for Darvin kind of night.
No.
This has no impact on that going forward or whatever, but it does show that at the very least, the players haven't folded up the tent. And so,
Darvin said after the game, actually, that he and Austin Reaves had a brief chat before the game. And he just said that he told Austin how much he appreciates everything that he does for this team and the hustle and the selflessness and just how much he's grown since he's coached Austin and, since he's been a Laker, and just how much he appreciates him. I'm not saying that led to Austin Reaves having one of the best games he's had this season, but
probably appreciates him more now.
Right. But the point being, though, it may at least indicate some degree of connection that may still be there.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm looking at this much more from the player's standpoint. 32 points, 10 of 18 from the floor, 7 of 10 from 3-point range. He had 3 assists. He had 0 turnovers, which, given the amount of time he had with the ball in his hands over 35 minutes, is a really impressive statistic. So we'll get into that. We'll get into Jaxson Hayes. We'll get into what we might have to look forward to with no Jarred Vanderbilt and any of that stuff. But all of it coming up next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel, and Happy Super Bowl for all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, placing some super bets. I love to go parlay. I love stacking together all these different little items, living a little bit on the edge, keeping it just like a live wire, keeping track of everything, and filling up on chicken tenders, pulled pork, and a healthy, sensible vegetable. FanDuel has all these different ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3, and you can bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but also which players will score a touchdown, who'll score the first touchdown, how many points will be scored, all sorts of options. And new customers, join today. You get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Again, just $5. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by Logix. You know, on this show, you get a lot of in-depth analysis and hot takes, obviously. Well, let me give you my hottest take of the day. The best lineup in LA and the surrounding areas right now is the lineup of auto loans at Logix. They start off at the top with one of my favorites, the proven and dependable new and used vehicle loans. You can count on these guys to give you low rates and save you big time bucks. Next up, they've got an exciting new rookie sensation in their electric vehicle loans with super low rates and flexible payment terms. Rounding out the lineup, they've got their auto refinancing loans and lease buyout loans. With these guys, you can lower your monthly payments and get onto the road to owning your car faster. Look, I know it's a hot take, but seriously, no one can beat the lineup at Logix. So visit your local Logix branch right here in LA and the surrounding areas and let one of their amazing team members help you, or just apply online in minutes at logixbanking.com/car. That's LOGIX banking.com/car. All right, so we'll get to Jaxson Hayes here in a second, but like to extend this conversation about kind of what you can pull from this, I do think it matters that the Lakers, first of all, it is a good mojo evening on a night during a stretch where the Lakers have had nothing but bad mojo. Like the vibes have been awful over the last a while. We'll say long enough for that hourglass that LeBron tweeted to empty. And this doesn't fix the Lakers. They are not a healed team, but it changes at least for a night or two. Hopefully with Anthony Davis and LeBron coming back on the floor, for Saturday's game in New York, we'll see what happens. It just adds, it lifts some of that weight off of it and lets people know that whether the solution is trading, whether the solution is firing Darvin, or combination of both, there is still some energy and fight left in the team. I think that's what they showed, what they proved on Thursday.
It also showed too that these guys have value, because whenever you have these conversations about quality of roster, people are not talking about LeBron and Anthony Davis. They're talking about D'Lo. They're talking about Reaves. They're talking about Rui down the line. And these guys came together and pulled off a massive upset against one of the best teams in the league on the road, national TV game. Oh, and it happens to be the Celtics on top of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Boston played pretty poorly. And if you did this another 9 times, Boston might win 8 of those 9. But it doesn't matter. Nope. It does not matter, because tonight the Lakers, they outplayed Boston. They took advantage of Boston's mistakes. They took advantage of Boston being flat. If Boston didn't take them seriously, the Lakers capitalized. And for a night where they did not have Anthony Davis, they looked as defensively connected as they have in a long time, including games with Anthony Davis. And again, this includes a second half where they did not have Jarred Vanderbilt.
You're right. But sometimes it comes from okay, AD is not there. And, they played the other night without AD and were awful. But they also had LeBron there. So maybe you're like, oh, you got LeBron. When Anthony Davis and LeBron are there, it's like, if we're not going to get humiliated tonight, if we're just not going to be sort of the failures that everybody thinks that we're going to be, Everyone has, and gets back to playing hard. Like you can, Taurean Prince fighting over screens, Reaves, everybody picking up guys like Tatum, and stuff like that. And then also being smart about it. Like there were a couple plays where, in semi-transition, D'Lo ends up having to pick up Porzingis in the lane. He gets the ball down low, very near the basket, and no stupid fouling. You just concede the basket. Like there's literally nothing 5 feet from the basket that D'Angelo Russell can do to keep Kristaps Porzingis from scoring. So let the play go. Don't foul. It's stuff like they avoided those kinds of mistakes that I think a lot of people expected them to start to make. And then the other thing that stuck out, you talk about everybody stepping up, like some of the statistical lines in this game are bizarre. I mean, the Lakers as a team shot 40% from the floor. They shot 53% from three. So if you go back and you start doing the math, you're in the 30s for your 2-point shooting on the night. That's not good and typically won't have you win. But not only did they shoot 53% from three, it was like the ones that needed to go in, and we all know what that means. Like that one's got to go in. Boston's cut the lead to 7. You take the 3. Ooh, it's got to go in. Like D'Lo was 5 of 20 from the floor, 4 of 8 from 3. Rui 5 of 14 from the field, 3 of 6 from 3. Made a couple big ones in the 4, like big fourth quarter shots. Like this was one of those nights where Reaves was 7 of 10 from 3. Every time they needed a shot to go in, it did, and they have not done that much this year.
Well, provided it was behind the arc. Every time they needed a shot to go down at the rim, they often missed.
Well, generally speaking, the times they needed a shot to go in, it was a 3, because like those were the ones. Like when they needed a bucket, they took a 3.
But to your point, though, every single Laker other than Jaxson Hayes, who does not do that, every single Laker who played real minutes in this game hit at least 1 3.
Mm-hmm.
That is a major recipe towards like being able to come up with those 3-pointers that I've talked about this before. The Lakers often don't shoot enough, period. But like, for example, in this game, in the first quarter, they shot something like 30% from the field, like pretty consistent with a lot of what they did throughout the game. But they managed to put up 27 points despite shooting 30% from the field, in part because of the 3-pointers you mentioned, but also they kept getting offensive rebounds and just extra cracks at the apple.
And pick up a foul, you get to the line, little stuff like that.
It reflects something I've talked about a lot, which is they need to be taking more shots regardless. Like one of the biggest problems this team has offensively, it's not purely X's and O's. It's not scheme, 5 out versus 4. Like those things all matter, and I think they can be problematic, but I think you can make a serious argument this team's biggest problem offensively is volume. They don't have enough offense, period.
It's a big one.
You saw the effects of that tonight, and just their activity, everybody who stepped on the floor. Like there was not a single Laker tonight that didn't feel like they contributed or, find some way even to offset what isn't working. Like we mentioned D'Angelo Russell, 5 of 20 from the field. He had 14 assists against 1 turnover.
Yeah,
that is
8 rebounds. I mean, 8 rebounds
2 on the
point guard.
Yeah, 2 on the offensive glass.
Jaxson Hayes had 6 of the 15 offensive rebounds you're talking about. Even Christian Wood, who was 1 of 9 from the floor, played hard defensively. He had a couple really important rebounds. Like and then of course, like, I mean, if you're looking for things to take away, Austin Reaves stepping up, at 28 the other night, at 32 on Thursday. Like the Lakers needed a star performance from him. They, and they got it. And that is meaningful. I think in one of these situations where like you looking at the guy who has been good this season, he's he just hasn't elevated to that next thing that I think the Lakers had hoped. He's been good. But it's also, I think, a hope that he could maybe start building into what he did last year after the break, the second half of the season where he was a different guy than he was at the first half of the season. Maybe this is a little bit of who he is. The last couple games might hint at that.
Yeah, hopefully. And then, I mean, one other element I wanted to point out just in terms of guys stepping up when it was needed, even if everything wasn't always going the way you wanted it to. I thought Rui overall had a very good game, but as far as his offense, it was ragged for the first 3 quarters, but he had 10 in the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody like Rui, whose role has been very up and down, I will contend to anybody strangers who will listen, that I don't think they give him enough to do offensively. That Darvin has not either trusted him or unleashed him enough, however you want to put it. This was a night where necessity dictated a scorer like Rui get more opportunities, and he came through down the stretch when it was really important to seal out a game.
Yeah, and it was a nice game for Torian, I think, to not have to worry about playing time, because I really do think he is starting to press. He oddly enough, with 36 3-pointers, Prince only took 2 of them, which is, to me, is a little bit crazy. But he played. I mean, you talk about guys who were playing hard and tried, especially in the second half. He was on the floor going for loose balls, and really, I think, tried to recreate a little bit of that Jarred Vanderbilt vibe. And they needed him to play as that sort of the right size guy. He played a lot of minutes the second half, needed to be on the floor as kind of that bridge. All right. We have waited long enough, Andy. It is time to talk about what we started off saying, the most shocking number of Jaxson Hayes this season. And then you were correct. It's the most shocking number of Jaxson Hayes' career. And then I was like, it might be the most shocking number in the NBA this season. You're like, it could be the most shocking number in the NBA since Jaxson Hayes entered the league, or arguably ever. And it's next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by PrizePick, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in up to 25 times your money. And you can pick combo projections across the big game coming up and basketball in the Specials League, created specifically for projections with 2 or more players in 2 or more sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James, Travis Kelce. You can go a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. And with PrizePick's reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured for NFL games, NBA games. If you have a player who exits the game in the first half, like, say, Jarred Vanderbilt, doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
This was easily the best game Jaxson Hayes has played as a Laker. There is no question about it. 16 points. 6 of 8 from the floor, 4 of 5 from the free throw line, including some, we talk about 3-pointers that needed to go in at key moments. Jaxson Hayes making free throws, second half free throws. Same deal, needed to happen. 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. He was great in 34 minutes. And but Andy, with all of that,
how do you like Jaxson Hayes, the starter now, Christian Wood?
I know. No lolling about that, I would say. But it is interesting. Like, they've gone back and forth all season long with, like, Hayes outplaying Wood, I guess, when Wood needed to get in better shape at the beginning of the season. Then all of a sudden you kind of look up and Wood is, like, really outplaying Hayes, who not only just wasn't playing well, he was playing terribly. Like, he reached the point where he was basically unplayable. And then kind of pivoting back, and like all of a sudden he's this useful player again. But Andy, if you hadn't, you were going crazy about this on at Cam Brothers on Twitter. When did you know? Take us through your journey with Jaxson Hayes and this shocking statistic.
Around 17 minutes of playing time for Jaxson Hayes. I think someone might have pointed out on Twitter to me that Hayes had played 17 minutes and had not picked up a foul. And I was like, oh my God, you're right.
Right.
I was like, I knew that he had been playing without fouling, but it really did not dawn on me. He's gone this long without a foul. And I tweeted out, like, this has to be the longest stretch of Jaxson Hayes' career without picking up a foul. Like, I want to put this in perspective for people. Jaxson Hayes averages 6.6 fouls per 36 minutes. Like, removing Gabe Vincent because the sample size is too small, he is tied for 4th on this team for fouls per game, unadjusted for playing time. And the guy averages 10 minutes a game. Like, he is like this generation's Travis Knight. Like, the man just racks up fouls. So then we get to like 30 minutes into the game, because I'm starting to really watch this now. This is becoming like my game within the game. I realized like Jaxson Hayes still does not have a foul with 30 minutes. I was like, I'm like hallucinating. Like, this is insane. And then finally, with the game in hand and the deep reserves coming into this contest to close out this improbable win and this improbable game within the game, 33 minutes, 52 seconds, 0 fouls. That is absolutely insane. Like, if you had asked me before this game, what do I think is more likely? The Lakers managed to win this game in Boston without LeBron, without Anthony Davis, and without Jarred Vanderbilt for the second half, or Jaxson Hayes playing 34 minutes without committing a foul. I'm taking the win without hesitation. Like, that doesn't. Oh,
it's not even close. It's not even like, close.
The win, I'd have to be creative, but I could come up with ways that the win happens. It did not feel possible for Jaxson Hayes to play 34 minutes without picking up a foul.
No, and in fairness to Hayes, for 34 minutes for any big to not, but like particularly that one, like, he steps on the floor for his first appearance of the game. He's already got 3 fouls. I mean, it's so, but like, this is what I'm talking about.
And he set screens in this game. I saw it.
He did.
He actually set screens.
He stopped.
Yeah.
Stop moving. Stood still, set a screen. But like, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Like, things have to go right. You need the statistical weirdness of 5 of 20, but 4 of 8, like we were talking about with D'Lo, or 7 of 10 from 3 for Austin Reaves, who is a good player and a good shooter, but 7 of 10 is robust, to say the least.
That is a career high.
Yeah, you need, you're going to need 34 minutes out of Jaxson Hayes with no fouls, and even then, you still need a little bit of luck from the Boston side.
He really was terrific, though, Hayes. He was terrific.
He was great. And I that again goes back to it, like, vibes matter. They are not the be all and end all. They are not, they do not overcome, like, this team. If you run them out against New York on Saturday, if LeBron and AD and Vando can't play on Saturday, Lord help us all. I'm not going to, it's not like, this is probably not something that can be repeated, even if they play really hard again. But it worked Thursday. It worked in this game. And if that can serve to change the atmosphere around this locker room, even just a little bit, and lift that up a little bit, that can make a difference in what they're trying to do, and at least push them back in a direction where it feels like, hey, hourglass, if we can figure this stuff out, if you can give us a shot based on whether that's a trade, whether that's a coaching switch, whatever it is, like, the guys in this room still care.
Or I was going to say, or the switch may be play harder, play with more focus, play with more purpose, push all of the bleep aside. Like, yeah, there's a lot you guys are unhappy about right now. There's a lot that you may be very justified in being unhappy about. You may think a lot of these rotations are nonsensical. They don't follow logic. Guess what? I agree with you. There are a lot of decisions that have been made this year with the rotation that I don't agree with either. But do you want to do this thing or not? Because, like tonight showed, there are things that you can at least reasonably accomplish if you just say bleep all the other stuff. And we're going to at least try to make this thing happen. Like, if you don't believe in that prospect, I can pretty much guarantee it won't happen. You know what I mean? Like, and this was a reminder of that, because the odds certainly didn't favor the Lakers tonight.
Let's fix what we can fix. And even if we're frustrated with the coach, even if it doesn't mean you ignore the guy, it doesn't mean, or maybe it means you set aside certain frustrations and you just go play in the way that you might have to if it's an official that you're annoyed with, or where you stop griping at the officials, stop, whatever it might be. I don't know. And it's easy to find some example, but there has not been a lot of things to get excited about or really happy about over the last couple of weeks with Lakers basketball. And so, on this night, I don't think we're reading too much into it, but it is, it's worth having at least a night of optimism and enjoying what this win kind of represented.
Honestly, I hope in some respects this game was a bit of a message to LeBron and AD. I mean, I think in particular LeBron, but AD, I think, has been just a little bit more polite in what I think has been some pretty evident frustration. But just a message of like, look, we're still here, man. We're still here to try to make a thing of this. Don't give up on us, even if you've given up on the coach. Don't give up on us.
Like, right. But now the us needs to play like that when LeBron and AD are there, because us was terrible in Atlanta, and us wasn't very good in Houston either. So it's like they're not heroes necessarily, but they, so there's a lesson in there for us too.
Well, here's what I mean. I've discussed this before, and it's sort of the dirty little secret that you don't want to necessarily dwell on when you're trying to think about positivity moving forward. But the way the Lakers played tonight with that type of sustained intensity, that is easier to do without LeBron. Now, so it's clear they are not a better team, big picture, without LeBron. Full stop. If people think I'm saying that, you're just wrong. But it doesn't change the fact that playing at that type of intensity, that type of pace, sustained for 48 minutes, given where LeBron is in his career, it is easier to do that without him. So that's still the riddle to solve.
Yeah. And I mean, you're right. And it's because LeBron, and you can do it for, I guess, individual regular season games. We can't expect him to do that for all of them.
He was locked in against the Warriors for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And finally, I just would like to point out that my pregame prediction that Jalen Hood-Schifino would get time at the end of the game with a team comfortably ahead was exactly right. Nailed it. So kudos to me. Look, we'll see what happens. Who's available to play on Saturday. Maybe they can carry this into the weekend, in through the rest of the road trip. It would be a huge deal for the Lakers to be able to turn the road trip around, given how it started. You steal a win in Boston, see what happens in New York, go beat Charlotte, you come back home feeling a little bit better than you did when you left. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 22,000 subscribers who feel at least a little better about themselves and the team for a night or two. We will see everybody next time.